Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Synth Stuff. Today we're going to be talking more about the Montage M and something a little bit disappointing coming up. I've been working with the AN-X engine trying to get my head around how it works and how to work with it and its capabilities, and I came across something that was a bit of a frustration, and I didn't find it in the manuals, and it turns out it is something that only occurs in the Montage M6 and M7. Almost makes me wish I had an M8, although I'm not really a fan of the weighted graded hammer keybed. I really prefer the synth action keybed, but this is a limitation that surprised me. I'm really surprised that Yamaha did this. So what exactly is that? Well, we'll get to that. First, I want to talk about the AN-X engine and some of the things that I discovered that are unique and great about the AN-X engine, and then I'll show you how I got stuck and found a limitation in that AN-X engine. All right, so we're going to start here by creating an init patch. So if we go back to, actually I'm on a init patch here, but we will create a new one. So if we go in here, we want init and we want AN-X, so there's our init patch. So here we have a standard init patch, which is a sawtooth with not much of anything. So pretty plain and simple init patch. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the built-in ring modulator and FM modulator, which you can see here on the sub panel in AN-X mode. So many synthesizers, analog, either digital, virtual analog, or actual analog synthesizers, you can take an oscillator and use it to modulate another oscillator. So for instance, on the System 8 up here and on the Summit, so I could take oscillator 1 and use it to ring modulate or sync against oscillator 2. And what does that mean? Well, it means that for ring modulation, it basically multiplies the first oscillator against the second oscillator, which in effect modulates one oscillator with a second oscillator. And if we have a sync, that means every time the first oscillator does a zero cross point, it resets the second oscillator to the same point so that it can cause harmonics to happen, but they both stay in pitch. Again, you have two oscillators. Lastly, you can see we also have FM here, which again uses two separate oscillators. One frequency modulates the second oscillator. In all these cases, you need two oscillators to create the sound. So you use up two of your oscillators and you lose some of the capability because you now have one oscillator creating sound and one being used exclusively to modify the first oscillator. That is not the case with the AN-X in the Montage M. We do have our three oscillators, but each of those has a sync and ring and FM, but it's not dependent on the other oscillators. It has a built-in oscillator or a second oscillator as inside each of the analog oscillators. So here we have oscillator 1, which is just playing a sawtooth. If I add sync, it's going to activate the second built-in oscillator that is part of oscillator 1, and it's going to start changing the pitch of that sync oscillator, and you'll hear it come in. And then you get that classic oscillator sync sound. So we have the ability to do oscillator sync without using up a second oscillator. Same thing goes for ring modulation. Let's pick a different wave for this. Let's say a square wave. And you can hear that ring modulation coming in from itself. And we are limited that the sync and ring is using the same waveform as the original oscillator, but it does give us the ability to have sync and ring modulation without using up a second oscillator. And the same thing goes for FM. get those classic FM sounds. Let's get, oh, I wonder if we try a sine wave. So you can see we have that classic FM sound there, or we can go into ring mod, which doesn't do much in a sine wave. So you would think, okay, well that's great, I can have ring mod or I can FM, but not both. Well, that's actually not true. If we do a page jump over to the screen here, we can see that we can add FM level. And you can see it come up on the screen, but we can also bring up ring level. Now it's not reflected. Well, it is actually on the sub panel here, but it's showing ring but no FM. But if we look over on the main screen, it's actually, the FM level is still up. So if I take out the FM level, we still have the ring level engaged. So you can have FM and ring level, ring mod at the same time. You just can't do it from the single control on the sub panel. That's kind of cool. So those are some interesting features built into the AN-X engine that I thought was kind of well thought out. And of course we can do the same thing if we go into Oscillator 2, and we'll just do another square wave, and then we can pitch that a little bit. If we wanted to, we could say the LFO is going to modulate our sync level. If you do want to slow down, because it's pretty tough to hit 0 there, if you just hold down the shift key, it goes a bit slower and you can get right back to 0. So let's kill this one and we'll go back to Oscillator 1. All right, so now I thought, okay, well what about if I actually, let me get rid of our FM here. I will say if I do have FM and ring level up on both, so I'll put those, I'll put them both up all the way. And you can see on the main screen they are definitely up. But if I touch this control, it instantly kills the one that you moved away from. All right, so let's bring those back down. So let's say I want to bring in sync. And this is the disappointment that I found. What I wanted to do was make it so that the sync came up when I pressed into Aftertouch. So, fairly simple thing to do in here. Control, and here we go, Aftertouch. It's set to polyphonic. Obviously, we don't have polyphonic in this synthesizer. We only have channel, so we'll switch that to channel. Let's do a control assign, and I'm going to do auto select, and I will push into the Aftertouch. And you can see as I pushed Aftertouch, it immediately set channel Aftertouch. That's my filter. That's fine. All right, so we're in our edit page here. We're going to switch from Oscillator 1 to Common, and then we are going to go to Mod Control and Control Assign, and we're going to go to Aftertouch, and it is set to Channel Aftertouch because that's what we have in the Montage M7, and then we'll say, okay, our destination is an AN-X parameter, and we want it to be the sync pitch. Okay, great. Okay, so now we should be able to, wait a second, what is this? Source, poly AT. Huh. Well, how do I switch this to channel AT? Because I don't have poly AT. And these little slash marks are showing that, hey, I can't change that. If I touch it, it just flashes red and doesn't let me change it. And after I messed around with this for quite a while, I realized that all these functions inside the AN-X engine here for Aftertouch. If I want to change the pulse width, yeah, all these things I want to do in here, ring modulation for the AN-X engine, are poly Aftertouch only. And that means I can't use the Aftertouch on this key bed to control all these AN-X functions. I can do pitch, maybe? Nope. Look at all these things. So all this stuff that I could normally do just by setting up an Aftertouch channel, or just by setting up a channel Aftertouch to any of these, are completely unavailable to me. So here's what I want to do, but I can't change the source from Poly AT. It's channel A Aftertouch only. And so I actually went over, and if I press, I MIDI'd my Hydrasynth to the Montage. So if I press a key on the Hydrasynth, it plays, and if I push into Aftertouch, you can hear it modulating that oscillator sync, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And of course, if I play a chord, I can modulate one of those. So I can modulate individual notes, but what that basically means is that if you want to use Aftertouch to modulate anything on the AN-X engine on the Montage M6 and M7, too bad, so sad, you're out of luck. It is poly Aftertouch only. It is hardwired, the AN-X engine is hardwired to only accept poly Aftertouch for modulation. And that's disappointing. That's a serious limitation in the Montage M6 and M7, and I'm really surprised that Yamaha did that. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is behind that, but I am really hoping that they fix that, because for M6 and M7 users who want to create AN-X, I mean, AN-X is an analog, virtual analog modeling engine that you want to be able to play expressively. And it basically means that for M6 and M7 owners, that's not an option. There is no way to do sound design in here that I have found that you can hook up the channel Aftertouch keybed in here to modulate stuff in AN-X engine. Huge oversight on Yamaha's part. And that leads me to believe that channel Aftertouch for the Montage is a dinosaur that is likely going to go away, and I am not going to be surprised if we see an M6X and an M7X Montage coming out in the future, simply because they've put a bunch of functionality in here and they've restricted it to the polyphonic keybed of the M8X, unless you have an external polyphonic keybed like I have on my Hydrasynth, which is really disappointing. So what do you think? Do you think this is a huge oversight by Yamaha? Do you think this is planned? Do you think they will fix it with a firmware upgrade? Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and be sure to click like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps me out when you do that. All right, thanks for watching.